Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong. We got another episode without Brian, but with Savon, and
Alright.
it's going to be a great two-man show here for us. We also are recording on a day where there's a game 7 tonight. We got Warriors Rockets coming up tonight. Hopefully, they'll give us a better game than the Nuggets and Clippers did, because the Clippers just did not show up last night. I don't know what happened to them, but we'll see. Hopefully the two different styles, because they play very differently. Hopefully they'll give us a nice battle of styles. Styles make fights kind of a game tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. Savannah, are you going to be checking out the game? Or are you out now that Detroit and Pels are out?
No, watching it'll be a fun series. I mean, this is like, a young, energetic, defense-minded team with a better regular season record versus a older, slower, veteran pedigree team with a far worse record. Like, it is very much the epitome of opposite ends of the spectrum, right? The
They're not far worse. I mean, it's maybe 3 or 4 games, something like that. It was in the regular season.
Yeah, but look, the Rockets been consistent all season. The Warriors were up and down. So, like,
Very up and down.
in that sense, good. The Rockets are a bunch of young boys who play defense and want to fight you, and the Warriors are a bunch of old dudes
who still want to fight you.
Who want to play smart defense, and then they have Draymond who wants to fight you. But I've been enjoying the hell out of the series. Granted, the Rockets' offenses, God, that shit is awful. I'll be watching that. And
if it's not Şengün, it's a little rough.
Their offense was unironically like getting Kobe assists. Remember the Kobe assist where you just shoot the ball, you miss, but your teammate gets the rebound and puts it in, and it's like, oh, I had everybody on me trying to stop me, so really I got you open for that Kobe assist. So, hopefully if our basketball brain doesn't melt from watching, grade school level offenses of them just trying to just toss the ball at the hoop and hope some good shit happen. But I'm excited for this. It'll be a fun game.
All right. Looking forward to that tonight. And then, we are going to talk, actually, The Last of Us, the beginning of Season 2 in this one. And then there's another Last of Us coming out tonight. So I am pumped for that. We'll get into what we've thought about the season so far. Wait, were we recording when I said that we're like at the halfway through this? I did, right? We talked about that. We're recording when I was like we're about halfway through the season. Oh, that was the end of our last show. That's right. Okay. My brain, it's not working. It's fine. It's the end of the school year, Sav. AP test is tomorrow. My brain is turned off, man. I am done.
You gotta do.
I'm so done. All right. Okay, we're back. Joel and Ellie, they're back, but now they're hanging out in Jackson, Wyoming, which is this little enclave of fortified territory, fortified city with somewhat of a community, a functioning community with functioning government and functioning services, a real we're in this together type of feel. And certainly they are how would I say it? They're confident. There may be a little bit of hubris here in terms of their understanding of their ability to deal with the clickers and the infected. I guess we wanted to do a little recap on where we're at in this, but it's hard to do a recap because this is somewhat like 5 years down the line from the end of the first season that we saw, and end of the first video game. That where we were is actually flipped on its head right away on this one. So, Sav, can you tell us about how things are quite opposite of how we left them at the end of season 1?
Yeah, so season 1 we ended with Joel and Ellie making their cross-country adventure to try and get to the I think it was the hospital in Salt Lake City, because Ellie was...
Well, that wasn't the original plan, but yeah, ultimately that ended up being the plan.
Yeah, that was the plan. They go there, things go sideways for reasons, because Joel wanted to Joel realized that this quest would result in Ellie's death. He's not cool with that.
Well, and for people who don't remember, the whole thing was Ellie is immune, right? That was the big reveal, is that Ellie's immune to this infection. And the Fireflies, which is this like sort of rebel terrorist group, is interested in finding a cure, and they think that if they somehow autopsy Ellie, basically, that they'll be able to isolate some kind of cure that they could then ship to the rest of the world, and save people prevent people from dying from this virus, or whatever is going on, the fungus. But
I hope they know Ellie was immune. Like, if you're listening to our Last of Us season 2 episode, and you are unfamiliar that Ellie's immune, I'm gonna need you to stop listening, turn the shit off, go to HBO and just rewatch season 1.
So
and
good.
maybe get
Not
a
rewatch,
notepad
gotta
or something,
watch.
or get a note. I'll just watch it, something, because I'm like, hey man, like that's one of those. Hey, do we have to tell him that detail? Like I got bigger questions if we got to remind him that Ellie was. But after after all that,
emotionally, where are we? Relationship
Joel
wise,
saves Ellie. They relocated to the I believe Jackson, where they have a settlement set up with Joel's brother. A time skip has happened. At this point, though, the main thing is
that's not fair. Maria's in charge. It's Tommy's wife that's in charge.
You wanted me to tell you where we at from here. You want to tell them where they at?
No, go ahead. You're doing a great job.
Look, so they had
I'm just saying,
journey.
don't give Maria short shrift. She's in charge.
They went to Salt Lake City for their quest. It turns out that it'll result in Ellie's death. Joel was not okay with that, lied to her, saved her, killed a bunch of the Fireflies in the process, and brought her for them two to live in Jackson under a false pretense, thinking that they actually couldn't help her. A time skip has happened. And by the time we start The Last of Us Season 2, they're still living in Jackson. Things seem to be going well. But there seems to be a rift between Joel and Ellie, and that's really what kind of sets up and kicks off the beginning of the season. They ended season 1 on decent terms, where Joel reassured her that everything was good, but something has happened in this 5-year gap, and now they're in a very awkward space, and that's really what sets us up. Otherwise, they're in Jackson. Things seem to be going well. The city is, like the little town, is a very developed town with a lot of good resources and shit. And so even though the relationships seem to be in a weird place, their living situation isn't. And so we're starting off in a solid spot.
Yeah, I think I was taken aback again. I mean, I had played the video games a couple years ago, but I was taken aback by just how jarring it was that we had seen them grow their father-daughter relationship through all of season 1 and really depend on each other and come to really love each other through their actions and through their words on screen. And now we're hit multiple times with you called it the rift between them, right? That they're cursing Ellie is cursing him out. They're not talking to him. Joel is like trying to go through a friend of hers.
She's barely cursing him out. She's just not talking to him.
Yeah, she's just like,
this isn't even
she's
like a
icing him out,
I
right?
hate you. Yeah, this isn't like a F you. This is more of like a hi. One word, dry answers, like the real heartbreak.
And she moved into the garage, like she doesn't want to really see him.
It is
she
awkward.
She resents how he manipulates her like protection schedule. Like she's on the what are they called? Not the inspectors. What are they? The people that go out and
patrols?
The patrols, yeah. She's on the patrol teams. And she doesn't like that he like changes her schedule or like tries to protect her.
He still tries to be a father figure to her. They have a rift.
She's clearly not having it.
Yeah, they have this parental this father-daughter relationship, but clearly is a strain and there's a lot of shit happening, and that's setting the picture a little bit.
All right. First 3 episodes so far. You and I were talking before we started recording that it's like, is it really just one episode? like the first episode and the third episode are good and all, but that second episode is where everything popped off. So I don't know if that's going to be your thing that stands out, but what are you taking away from these first 3 episodes, and what do you want people to know that you thought about once they seen these first 3 episodes? Like, what is the thing that you noticed?
Yeah, big thing I noticed is or I'm just back to appreciating is that this is a very dialogue heavy show, especially for a game that tends to be a bit more on the action adventure side or stealth. They're really leaning into the dialogue, and I appreciate that. One of the biggest things I appreciated about season 1 was that even though it's basing it off an adventure game with not a huge cast of characters, they gave the characters a lot of room to have really significant dialogues, right? Some of them lived it directly from the game. Some of them totally new additions, but the changes that they have made to facilitate for more dialogue and character interactions is something I really like, because I think that's the strength of putting this game story into a TV medium. It's very relationship heavy. It's very character driven, character interaction heavy, and that lends itself to the HBO 1 hour plus TV format very well. So when you have things like Joel in therapy, things that wouldn't have really worked in the game just for video game pacing purposes, like, sorry, respectfully, y'all, I'm a mental health advocate. no one wants to play a video game where you're actively sitting through therapy sessions. I'm sorry, that's not what's
not
happening.
a lot going on there.
That's not. It doesn't make for engaging gameplay more often than not. And so the first thing I noticed was that
don't give Neil Druckmann any ideas. That'll be his next game.
But the first thing I noticed was that they are adapting the game in a way to where they're focusing on spaces that don't make for good gameplay, but make for good character-driven dialogue. And I'm really appreciating that.
Cosign. I think what stuck out to me is that one, that second episode was a behemoth of an undertaking in terms of the story that happened, the writing that happened, the action that happened, the amount of production and set and VFX and special effects that needed to happen. It felt like that was an entire movie by itself. And done to the level of this is a theatrical film where we expect a lot of people to see it. So that stood out to me, is that did they just blow the entire budget on episode 2? Like, maybe, I don't know. I hope not. I hope there's more budget there left over, but what an incredible episode, and we'll talk specifically about it in a minute, but I just thought like that stood out to me right away. And then the other thing that kind of stood out to me is how the show, I think it did this a little bit in the first episode or in the first season, and the game did this a little bit too, is that it embraces kind of those slower, quieter moments, and these elements of normalcy that you expect to see not in a zombie world or not in an infected world, are still really well done. So I'm thinking of, there was a conversation in episode 3 between Tommy and the psychologist Gail, and they were just having a beer. They're sharing some beers at like a baseball game, like a youth baseball game, which, you would see at any time in cities across America where just kids are just going to be playing baseball on the weekend, on Saturday. And so they're at a point where they can have these nice moments of civilization and community and togetherness that weren't afforded, that they weren't afforded in the first season. And at a certain point, Joel, well, I guess this is spoilers. Joel, well, we'll maybe save it a little bit for a second, is that Ellie visits a gravesite, right? And is able to do a proper bit of mourning in the bask of like a golden sunrise, or a sunset or whatever. And just gets moments to be quiet and reflect, and you get to see like all the emotions just come across her face. And in episode 1, like you said, the most impactful moment was probably Joel having to sit on the couch with Gail and try his best to not talk about what's actually bothering him, and she making him confront what's bothering him and making him identify, like, as much as he can at least, what is actually happening and why his relationship with Ellie has become so fractured. And he still can't admit it to himself fully, right? But he can sort of dance around it, and that's more than it seems like he's been able to do at this point. So I think just like really great uses of writing and these conversations to let us dive into these characters and invest in them and see them struggle, see them challenge, see them like what they're actually afraid of, and see their fears kind of laid bare in front of us. And the show has just been really good about that, and it was good about that in season 1 too. So more of the same, I think, which is not a bad thing at all.
No, absolutely. This was, like I said, this was always a very cinematic game, even by video game standards. It was always like there are moments where you're basically playing a movie. And so, again, I've said this before, but like this was a very good story to adapt into the visual, like TV medium. Like this was and I'm just excited for other ways that they're gonna give us conversations that wouldn't have fit cleanly into the game, but still just makes you really, really locked in on the characters and what they want. I'm here for it. It's a very well acted show. Oh, sorry, you're talking about budget, Wes? The good thing about this show is that the budget matters less to me, because what makes the show, this isn't a show that's predicated on fire CGI and dope shots and shit. I mean, it is, but like this show is being carried by the acting and the character and dialogue more so than just a bunch of like CGI visuals, No one's gonna be losing sleep over, oh my goodness, the space station didn't look like a real space station. Oh my goodness, the budget. Oh my gosh, how could you watch this? Because they're in a town, a renovated town that's very grounded and realistic. So you're not here critiquing that. You're here engaging to the characters talking and shit. But that's like not a concern I have budget wise, because that's not what this show is really making its bones off of.
I agree. I would imagine though that you would feel it if it had less of a budget, in the sense that you'd have fewer extras in the background. It would feel less lived in. The sets would feel less real. I don't know if that makes sense. And I think that does impact like how we interpret a particular scene.
Is that happening with this show though?
Their attention to detail has been really on top of things. What's up?
Is that happening with this show though?
Oh no, I don't think so.
Oh, then then we good then. No, we shouldn't get worked up over like a hypothetical that we haven't even, like
exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, I was just throwing it out there that it really felt like they used all of their money on this one episode, and like
how much money they had was. It might have had a deep bag. Like
maybe they do got a deep bag.
Why you pocket watching Wes? Like, oh, that sounds like you blew all your money. Like, hold on, let HBO cook. Let them cook. Let them.
The one time I felt like they let money choices dictate how it looked on screen was that one scene in episode 2 where Tommy is fighting off the bloater with his flamethrower. They end up in this little pocket of the side of the town where like no one else is. It's not clear why this space exists. There's like fake trunks lined up on the side there or something like that. So it's kind of like a storage space, but like not really. That was a weird.
That's the shit that you zero in on watching these scenes.
No, yes, I noticed that.
That entire scene.
You didn't notice that?
Shit that happened.
You didn't notice that? It stuck out like a sore thumb compared to how like massive everything else was, and how like overrun with people everything else was in that episode.
Oh my God, I need a cigarette.
That's really funny that you didn't notice that. I don't know. That was something that stuck out to me as like, oh, like why? How did this scene like come about? In this like random weird one-on-one space.
What the hell does your brain be latching on to, Wes?
That apparently.
You don't be noticing characters' main effing names and main plot stuff that happens, but you noticed.
Yeah, it was jarring.
That.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Actually, let's talk about it. Episode 2. What a crazy episode. I don't even know. Sav, what did you take away from this? You knew what was coming.
So
wait, have you played the game? You haven't played the game.
I know. I mean, I watched I played some of it, and I did a full watch playthrough. I know I've watched the entire playthrough of the game.
Okay. So you've watched the game, which is it's kind of like playing it because a lot of the game is actually cinematic. But
I mean, and this is through gameplay too. Like this is a person like the walkthrough had the gameplay as well, so I got to see the actual. It wasn't just the dialogue parts; it was the actual missions and them doing stuff and all. So
it's kind of like playing it. So what did you take away? You knew sort of mostly what was coming. They didn't stray in this particular part. In episode 2, they didn't stray too far away from what had happened in the game.
No, they had some pretty significant changes.
I mean, well, I guess Jackson being overrun.
Yeah,
by
but not
zombies
just that. But not just that.
Thing. Okay, tell us.
So I had a different question for that one, but
okay.
But I was very, very happy with episode 2 because
me too.
Now we're going full mask off spoilers in terms of what the show, not in terms of the game. We won't talk game spoilers, but show spoilers, mask off. We knew Joel that people who played the game knew that Joel was gonna die. It sucks. R.I.P. A lot of us knew that part was coming. And
it killed me in the game when it happened. I was pissed.
Yeah, everybody, yeah. So
I was so mad.
So we knew that it was coming. And shout out again to the showrunners because they knew that, all right, all of the game people are already going to know about the big ball we're about to drop on them. So what can we do to get to have this episode also have the game people be like, shit. Oh, bet. Let's have Jackson get attacked, which does not happen in the game at all. So I think both of us probably went into episode 2 thinking, all right, cool. Shit's going to happen. Storm, Joel gets fucked over, yada, yada. We know the beats.
Yeah.
But
and they foreshadowed that at the end of 1. You see Abby on the hill right at the end overlooking Jackson.
Yeah. And also for a lot of folks, I'm sure if you're just more of a big picture person, Joel, a lot of us knew Joel was going to face some kind of reckoning from what he did at the end of the first game. Like, even when I played the first game, I was like, I feel like action's got consequences, play a pimp. And I didn't think it was going to come around that hard, that quickly. starting the next game, but like I knew that was gonna come back to bite him in the ass, right?
I didn't. I thought he did the heroic thing.
No, I was like, hey man, no. all right now. But
live with your choices
yeah,
or don't.
I'm just like, all right. But yeah, the Jackson being attacked was a great twist to keep the people who knew about Joel also surprising on their feet. And because I just was not ready for that. Oh my goodness, the emotional whiplash of knowing what's going to happen to Joel, or not knowing if you haven't seen either of them, but then also effing just this entire attack on Jackson, everything going to shit and all of that. And they kind of foreshadowed it, talking about some other stuff, but I didn't think it was going to pop off the way it did. So I loved episode 2. It felt like a season finale, right? It felt like a season finale of just the stakes were high. It was tense. You're in the edge of your seat the whole time. It's episode 2. Like I said, if you didn't play the games, you're just getting hit with a double whammy. If you did play the game, you frankly going with a false sense of security because you think Joel's death is the biggest thing, and low-key, the attack on Jackson might be just as big, if not bigger, in terms of the stakes of how it affects the story and all that. So I love that. I like, again, a great blend of new content, which is the Jackson attack, all that original, but then the part where Abby meets up and finds Joel and they save her during the snowstorm and she's running from the creatures because they're crashing through the fence and all that shit. And that was like a 1-to-1 recreation from the game.
I didn't remember that, but
they're all like crashing the fence and the fence is falling on her. Like that was straight out the game. And I'm like getting secondhand stress. So just shout out to them for being able to engage all branches of their audience and keeping them on their toes. And I said this before, every time they do a change from how they did it in the game, I feel like it's always been noticeably for the better. Even with Joel's death, the big difference, Wes, is that in the game, it was Tommy who was with Joel when all that went down. Tommy and Joel were out patrolling, and then they come across Abby, and then all that happens, and all that stuff goes down. They changed it to Dina, I think I was reading about this. I think they said, Tommy, knowing his background and all that, might be a little bit more cautious in that situation, and maybe Tommy and Joel together will be less likely to get led into an ambush by Abby. So they changed it to Dina, and it made a little more sense, right? Because then they softened up Joel of the saying, hey, you want to help refugees, and what if people come up? And we know that Joel has softened up as a person, which, again, the cruel irony, right? If he's finally gotten to soften up and grow as a person, but the very thing that let him soften up and grow as a person boomerangs and results in his death, which is this very cruel, dramatic irony. But
it also gives him motivation for finding warmth and shelter as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? He knows Dina's not going to make it if they stay out in this crazy snowstorm for too long.
Yeah, he might feel a little better out with his brother. The two brothers are really strong and capable, and them getting ambushed feels a little less likely. So even little changes like that don't really change things noticeably, but
not yet, at least.
Not yet, but it's little stuff. But all of it's been like for the improvement of the story. But I'm here for it, man. I'm really enjoying the shit out this show, and half the fun is gonna be watching my friends who haven't played the game just be like, look, man, you're in for a ride. And then simultaneously being like, the showrunners know that people like me are going in cocky thinking, yeah, I know what happens. And they're going to hit us with some shit. Because they already did.
Yeah, I don't think they're as focused on giving game players big surprises. I mean, I think they do think like, if we can do that, great. And if we can incorporate additions to the story that are going to flesh out this world better. But they've really been focused, in terms of their interviews at least, they talk about a lot about just like, does this serve the story? Does this make sense? Does this serve the medium, knowing that you're not able to play firsthand the characters like you would in the video game? And so like, what changes do we need to make because it's a TV show, not because like we're trying to throw gamers off the scent and give them something new. Yeah. Although I think it's
a little bit of both. I mean, I think definitely it's not their main part. I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because
if they can, they will. But yeah,
like the Jackson attack would have been a great video game sequence. Like I don't think that was them trying to necessarily throw gamers off. But I mean, I think it's both. Like it's not, I don't think that's their main objective. But to your point,
your characters are not in Jackson. So like, having that as a sequence, you don't get to battle the zombies. You're just watching it from afar. Like, what good is that?
I mean, you play as but you play as multiple characters, and they still could have had a reason for them to be in Jackson. Why it gets attacked forward? Like, that's not a you can find reasons. You can just have the Jackson tech happen after they go back or some shit, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
My point more so is that they make changes, and the changes do a good dual job of serving the story and telling parts of the story that don't translate well in game, or that the game just didn't have time to do, because now they can look back in retrospect and say, oh, this was dope. Hey, we can build on this, because we can build on this. And like Invincible, right? Some of it is adapting to the media. Some of it is, hey, we can use this as like a low-key a second draft to just improve on things that maybe we didn't like as much the first time.
Yeah.
Which I think the whole Dana switching with Tommy thing was one of like, oh, in hindsight, I think the showrunners are involved with the show, and the people who create the game are involved a little with the show.
Absolutely.
And I think a conversation was, oh, in hindsight, Tommy and Joel probably would have been a little smarter about not getting let into an ambush. But if it's a snowstorm and it's him and Dina, that maybe can be a little bit more relatable. So there'll definitely be some moments where I think they say, we could tighten this up. Let's make this change, and it'll be for the better. But it also serves two sides of also just giving you new shit and new things you didn't see, but also being able to throw some curveballs to gamers so that it's not just a one-to-one adaptation. Because I've always been in the camp of, if you're gonna do a one-to-one adaptation, why even do it in the first place?
Right.
You know,
absolutely, I agree.
Like, hey, if you're gonna adapt it, take advantage of what the different media can provide to tell a variation or do something different with the story. I don't want The Last of Us, the game, just in TV form. So, I mean, yeah, bro, they're doing a good job of keeping me on my toes. Like, sometimes it can be hard to be engaged in a story the same way when you know some of the major story beats.
Yeah.
And they are really good about making this about the journey, not the destination. Because you and I both know the fates of most of the characters, but I kind of don't care, because I'm more interested in how we get to that in the first place and how they tell that story, how they make you care or not care about people. Like, Blank character we know is going to die. I'm just using like an example. Yeah. Blank is going to die. Fine. But how do they build it up? How do they get you to invest or not invest in the character so that the gut punch either feels good or bad? And as long as you do that part right, which they tend to be good about, I don't care about knowing how it ends. This is a true journey, not the destination, although the destination matters too. But this is a big show that's about the journey, and I think that's going to be good for everybody.
One of the mechanics in the game is that you do play multiple characters, and so they take advantage of that for storytelling purposes to really build in. I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not super. It's just like you get to play as Abby in the game, and so you go on this journey of, after she kills Joel, like she does in episode 2 here in the show, you hate her. You absolutely just like despise her. And they take you on a journey through the gameplay of both in previous times and in current times of letting you into her world and into her perspective, that ends up having you, respect her, and then maybe ultimately ending up loving her as a character as well, if depending on your point of view on that. I mean, I think some people hated that character no matter what. But
you're right. It's a peel back the layers of like, hey, don't judge.
And they're not.
Wait.
Yeah, they're not gonna go in that specific direction, because they've already actually unveiled some of why she's doing what she's doing.
That was a big change too.
I'm interested to see if that's gonna work. I actually really liked that switch of like the realizations that you're having as you play the game of like, oh snap, like, she's not a complete psychopath, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, she's psychopathic, but she's not a complete psychopath, and you can see where these things are coming from her earlier experiences, and in some ways you're like, oh, maybe she's not the villain that I thought she was, right? Yeah. Whereas like in this one, it's the same, but you start off at a different level. You're not thinking of her as like this complete like unhinged psychopath. You're thinking of her as like, she is someone who's out for revenge, which is a different level of understanding of her character. And I don't know if that switch as we go through and learn more about her, if that's going to land as easily or as well. But I do think I am like willing to for sure give them a lot more leeway, because I know that they've thought a lot about like, if we make a change from the game, it needs to be for a reason. And they clearly made a change here to reveal more about Abby than we knew in the game at this point. That then I'm going to trust that they did that for a reason and that it's going to pay off later and work together with the rest of the story. So
yeah,
we'll see.
some of it I think what you're talking about, because I agree with you. I think that is one of those.
Like,
This
we
is
hate
why.
her.
Well, that's why I never like hated her. I was just like one of those. I hate what you did, but I'm like, yo, kind of like fuck around, find out, like, yo, you shot up a hospital and shot a doctor in the face, like.
Well, but this is before we know why she was doing it, right? She just comes on screen and is full on like, Joel, fuck you. I'm killing
why
you.
they hate him, but
and the mystery is why did she do that, right?
Yeah, I think that change, which people might have mixed feelings about, I think that's because I think that's a pacing purpose thing of the way The Last of Us is told. It's told in. I'm trying to say this in a not spoilery way, but it's not a story. The story is not told in a straight line, right?
Right. We go backwards in time.
Yeah, it's not a story with a straight beginning to end narrative, and because the narrative involves these different characters in different places doing very different things who actually kind of have minimal path crossing a lot of the times, I think that makes it a lot harder to do for a 8-episode season, right? Because imagine if they did try to I know I'm trying to say this in a spoiler-free way, but imagine if they did try to follow it the way that the game tells the story, you might not be getting certain major characters until the end of this season.
Yeah.
And then you might have a third season that finally explains it, and that might be bad for pacing because folks are like, yo, people want payoff to what's going on with the Joel thing, Like I could see how for a TV show that could cause some pacing issues of like, yo, we actually need to kind of get this character on the board now and explain, because if they done just killed Joel, we don't got no context. And he was one of the loved characters in the show. People are already online and say, oh, I ain't gonna watch the shit no more because they kill blah 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 and all that. And
he'll be back. We know there's more. We know there's more of him to come.
Yeah, but you get the point I'm making is that I think that becomes like a bit of a pacing storytelling issue of game wise. I think it's good to be able to tell these parallel stories with the gameplay being able to fill in the blanks. I think it's harder when you're trying to endear the audience to a character or get you to be sympathetic with them. I think if they waited too long, the horse would be way too far out the barn for people to maybe be empathetic to why what happened to Joel happened. Now, the writers still have an uphill battle because everyone loves Joel and Pedro Pascal, and like some of that is just like, yo, that man could have blew up a hospital. I'm still rocking with your boy. But frankly, this is gonna be the challenge of the writers, right?
He's the Joker, but he's my Joker.
Yeah, it's like, basically. But this is gonna be a challenge of the writers that I'm really curious to see if they're up to the task. And Mike and I talked about this a little bit of Abby is a hated character for understandable reasons. I think that the character's motives and when you learn about them makes them a lot more sympathetic. But I think folks also, frankly, can have either a mix of poor media literacy versus just, they just like the character that they like, and good storytelling won't make them change their mind. I'm curious to see how they...
I mean, I think that was one of the like most phenomenal things about the game was that transition from I hate Abby, which is how I felt about her, to I understand Abby, and I want the best for her.
We'll see.
Do you know what I mean?
But also
that switch is crazy to pull off in a video game where you are so invested in the character that she violently kills.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking a lot about Abby. Maybe we shouldn't be talking so much about Abby because I think people watch it. Yeah, but we probably should have focused on Ellie because I think folks, I don't know how much people know about if Abby's even significant or not. But
well, I mean,
they're hunting her. They know they're hunting her.
Abby's significant, and I imagine she's going to play a big role in season 2. So I think that's where our mind goes because of how we know about the game. But yeah, Ellie has been great so far again, and I think her being in a different emotional state is actually really important. And then the thing about her being like, yeah, me and Joel will be okay, like on when she wakes up in the morning and has that conversation with Jesse, is just like makes Joel's demise still a huge gut punch, right? Like it was already going to be ridiculous, and then for her to be like, yeah, we'll talk about it, we'll mend our fences finally, right? We know it's been 5 years, we know how deeply wrong their relationship is or how fractured it is, and she's finally willing to put some of that to bed and to like start on a new path. And then oof. All right, okay, last thing, because we don't want to talk too long about this. We got we'll talk more about it when the season ends and Brian is here. So the last question is, are any of the characters, like the side characters / new characters from this season, are they tickling your fancy? Because I think Catherine O'Hara as the psychologist has been absolutely wonderful in the way that she somehow like plays this role of, you killed my husband, but I'm still going to be your psychologist and therapist because that's literally all there is. Like, there's no one else here besides me to help you through this.
While going
Is
through
like,
substance abuse and open
yeah,
about it. Just
and
like, I need to smoke and drink, or I'm just like a effing wreck, dog.
she's a better person than me. If someone killed my husband, I would not be their therapist. I couldn't do it. I'd just be like, fuck
Well, I guess
you,
we gotta
dude.
find out the why. That's the why, because she said, right, I can forgive you, but not the how. So that's gonna be a whole nother probably mystery of like, all right, what the hell went down?
Yeah.
Because she knows he had to die, but she mad about the how. That's already giving gray, morally complex. So I'm like, all right, what the hell happened?
All right.
Nice.
And then let's see, what else was there?
Hold on, I got one. Tommy and Maria.
Okay.
That's who I'm rocking with.
Okay.
Heavy. Really, I just like that they're leaning into the showing about how this town actually just focuses the little shit. You know, just the needing people who can do masonry and work pipes and do circuitry. And I like that they're just building that out of everybody. Like, it really does feel like an all hands on deck team effort. Even your boy, who's Seth, the homophobic a-hole, who, by the way,
works the
kitchen. Why are we being homophobic in the apocalypse, pimp? Like, come on, dog. We got bigger shit. Like, this is what we doing in the apocalypse. We got mushroom zombies, and you out here worrying about gay folks? Like, come on, big dog. You gotta do better than that. But they sell you on it being a town.
I mean, people would bring their prejudices to this new world, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but like, dang, where's that on your priority list? Like, they can't be lower. Like, damn, come on, big dog. We ain't got bigger shit to worry about. You can't just like rant to your wife at home that night about it. You had to be so mad. You was like, nah, this shit ain't gonna stand. I'm gonna say. Granted, he was drunk, but like, come on, pimp. You couldn't just like step brew to yourself or give a meme. He just straight up confronting. But no, I like that they're showing. I like them showing how the town runs.
Yeah,
things like the council and them trying to just kind of what you mentioned before. I like how The Last of Us does post-apocalypse. Like, some shows lean too heavily into the Mad Max. Oh, everyone just becomes the worst version of themselves. I actually like that this Last of Us is kind of showing people just want regular everyday life and creature comforts and just like irregular shit, even like how it was before the apocalypse. I like that they lean into people wanting normalcy along with stability, not just surviving. And it feels like a very realistic take on trying to rebuild. But Maria and Tommy, I like them. They just feel like very real people. The things that they are in conflict about feel very real. Even just that brief moment of Tommy and Joel maybe being a little biased towards the girls clearing out a building. Like, why? It's different. But then also the politics of keeping the shit afloat, having enough food, resources, building, taking them in. Like, that is a very cool subplot that I like watching with these other characters, because it makes the survival. Because this show, keep in mind, we know this, Wes, right? This show is not about the apocalypse and people surviving. It's about people's relationships and grief and revenge and how those things can change you, how those things impact you. That's what the shit's really about.
Right.
But it's nice to still have these characters show, hey man, the world is still trying to rebuild. And they're just very well acted. But yeah, I think Maria and Tommy are very, I just like their character interactions, and they make the world and city of Jackson feel very real. And it makes Joel's death kind of hit harder. Honestly, it just makes all the stuff around the town feel like it has weight, because all the characters are so invested. Everyone's always talking about the betterment of the town, their part. It's patrols, it's food, it's games, it's activities, it's campfires and shit. Even people not liking it, I like that they're building that up, because it stands in stark contrast to, frankly, where Ellie is, and maybe even arguably the direction of the story.
Yeah. No, Ellie is not about community, even though she gets to enjoy the fruits of that community.
Yeah, and even before Joel's death, people call it out. They just even say, "Hey, man, you should come to New Year's." Why? Because we all live in this damn town, big dog. Like, come on. Like, it's really like the teacher just saying, "Damn it, you just interact with your peers." I'm not saying you gotta have fun. I ain't gotta say you gotta have a good time, but damn it, show up and show some show some face.
Yeah, just sit at the table. Sit at the table with the other people. Stop sitting by yourself. That's it.
But honestly, which kind of brings me to, like, I'm really excited for Ellie's character development. I think they're doing a great job of establishing kind of just what her deal is. Like, she's clearly very insecure about being perceived, not only perceived as weak, but just being weak.
Yeah.
Right. Her first intro is her fighting and then getting pissed because Homie was like, hey man, don't tell nobody to hold back on me. That's like the most disrespectful. She really like, yo, that's the most disrespectful shit you could possibly do to me.
Yeah.
Like, she has a theme of not having agency that goes back to season 1, right? Of Joel took
her
the agency
gets taken away so many times, right?
Joel took her agency. She doesn't have agency to go in a full out fight. She doesn't have the agency or strength to try and save Joel when she wanted to. Like, a theme in the show is her, one, being alone. One, her not asking for help, because even Dina was like, hey, if you wanted to do this shit, you could have just asked for help. And Ellie, in the most honest of tone, says, I didn't know I could ask for help. So, like, her just being this independent character to the point of being toxic and not wanting to be a part of community, but to your point, also reaping the benefits of it. But then her abandonment issues and all that. Her character has a very nice cocktail of conflicts going on.
Fucked upness.
I think conflicts. It's legit conflict, because she's been through a lot. She says, she's lost everybody who's ever been close to her girlfriend, first girlfriend. She's lost everybody she's ever had. So she clearly tries to be hyper independent as a defense mechanism to all that. But she's also simultaneously been saved by folks and lives in a community, and she clearly exists in conflict of wanting to be on her own and not needing help, but living in a world where, hey, pimp, this is built on us working together and needing help. And like, how does her character wrestle with that? And we're kind of seeing the starts of it, right? Of, I will listen to whatever the council says. I'm like, oh, so you lying?
She will not.
As soon as she said that, we both was like, oh, so she lying?
Yeah, nah.
But even the conversation with Tommy and what was the lady's name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. The psychotherapist.
Oh, you said Gail.
Gail, yes. Even Tommy and Gail, they're having like a really cool nature nurture conversation of like, hey, big dog, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is kind of how always Ellie's been, if I'm gonna be real with you. And that's like them kind of saying the Joel shit messes her up, but this is something that Ellie's always had to reckon with. Abandonment issues, anger, helplessness, and how do you reconcile with that? But I'm really excited for Ellie's journey, because Bella Ramsey does a really good job as the character. And like, I've met people like Ellie before, and I'm like, yeah, man, you just kind of got a chip on your shoulder and you got something to prove. And like, I get it, but chill the F out. But that's a cool character to watch.
And no one likes you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, you don't worse enemy. Like, I get it. You have a lot of respectable, admirable traits. Your people skills are ass. And
you got skills. No one cares.
But it makes for an intriguing character. She's far from perfect, but her flaws make sense of why she has them, and it's cool to see her try and navigate that, especially as a young person.
Something that also stood out to me was the clickers are learning. She was like, these clickers, these clickers are upgraded. There's clicker 2.0. So I was like, oh, this could be really really interesting, because they were feeling confident, and now it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe you got to be more on the lookout. And they said that they were covering themselves with dead infected to insulate themselves from the cold. It's like, that's a level of planning that
I'm like, oh boy,
that shit is gonna blow up on us.
I was like, shit, oh boy.
They're smarter. Oh no,
boy, that's not what we need.
And then the little fungus in the pipes. That's gonna be bad news, guys. All right. We'll stop it there. And
that's how they found the city. That's how they found Jackson in the first place. Remember, they're connected.
I guess that was part of it.
They're connected because it's like a hive mind thing. Because they said in season 1, you could step on like one of those little cordyceps things,
and it reverberates.
And it'll set some shit off way further away. So like, unfortunately, despite the fact that Abby's the one who kind of initiated that, it also gives the sign of like Jackson was probably kind of screwed to begin with. That was like a if not when type thing, or a win not if, of like, if it wasn't Abby, it was gonna be something else, and this was gonna get ugly.
So do you think that's the end of that? I was thinking, because it's in everything, right? We know that the sewer connects everything in a town, in a city, that it could start getting in their food supply, or it could get in their water supply and start infecting people that way. And so like people from inside would become a threat, right? Because their whole thing is designed to keep threats out. But what happens if the infected are in your town? How do you deal with that?
The dialogue seemed to have been more about them rebuild. They were talking a lot about rebuilding. So I'm interpreting it as that's not going to
cleared it out.
That's not going to make it uninhabitable. My interpretation was that the cordyceps in the pipes was to explain how they're even able to find Jackson in the first place. And because they're all linked up in a hive mind, once Abby accidentally set that whole shit off,
so they'll flamethrower all those roots and fungus in the pipes and be back to being safe.
Or maybe they gotta just clean the pipes out. I don't know what it is they gotta do, but like, I think the cordyceps in the pipes served its story purpose of the fungus are nearby, and this is how they gonna find y'all.
All right, don't be laying pipe in the fungus. That's all. That's what we're gonna say here. All right, friends. We're out of here.
Yeah, buddy.
We'll come back to this at the end of the season and talk about how it finishes. Like we said, it's 7 episodes. And another one comes out tonight. So we're interested in that. So yeah, hit us up. What have you thought about it so far? How wrecked were you after episode 2? Because I think it probably took me 4-ish days to kind of get back to normal and not be thinking about it every like 20 minutes. I was devastated by that episode, even though I knew a lot of what was gonna be in there. We're out of here. Hit us up on socials on Instagram at confidently_pod. Let us know what you thought. And then you can also find us on YouTube, on Spotify, and a bunch of other places. But we check Instagram the most in terms of DMs. And then we also put up a full video recording of our show on YouTube if you're interested in watching it. And then you can find the audio recording in a whole bunch of different places. Your normal, places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and such. So we're out of here. Have a good one. We'll be back. We should be talking about Andor season 2 because that's going to be finished before we come out with the next one. All right, friends, we're out of here. See you later. Bye.